Justin Trudeau, somebody you went to school with.
We actually beat up Justin Trudeau.
You beat him up?
Yeah.
This is my video update from Prague, Czech Republic on this Sunday morning, October the 29th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with an update on a possible Biden-Xi Jinping meeting, which will take place next month in San Francisco during the APEC Forum, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, which is slated to take place in San Francisco next month. Gavin Newsom, of course, will be hosting this summit event. And Newsom was in China, in Beijing, and met with Xi Jinping just a couple of days ago. This visibly upset Bidenopoulos, who has been trying to get a date with Xi Jinping now for like the last 6 months. And each time he requests to meet with Xi Jinping and go out with the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping comes up with a different excuse each time, and he snubs the president of the United States because Xi Jinping doesn't really want to meet with Biden. But it looks like that we may be getting a meeting in San Francisco if Xi Jinping attends the summit in San Fran. Then Biden and Xi Jinping will have some sort of meeting. Politico is reporting that the Biden White House is signaling that they are putting together some sort of a meeting between the U.S. president and the Chinese leader at the summit if Xi Jinping does attend the summit. And that's all we have to go on for the moment. Basically, the Biden White House signaling that they're very close to putting something together, to putting together a meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping. And it was during the State of the Union address a year ago where Joe Biden went into Dark Brandon mode and started to yell, "Name me one leader who wants to meet with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one." And well, that leader is Joe Biden. That's the leader that desperately wants to meet with Xi Jinping. Unbelievable stuff, huh? Unbelievable. He goes in front of Congress, in front of America. Joe Biden gives a speech, State of the Union, to the entire United States of America, to the entire world. And he talks about how Xi Jinping is a dictator, and he starts yelling, "Who wants to meet with Xi Jinping? Name me one leader who wants to meet with Xi Jinping." And here we have Joe Biden for the last 6 months desperately trying to meet with Xi Jinping. Can't make this stuff up, man. You really can't. So an update on the UN General Assembly vote that took place a couple of days ago. The Guardian, they are running with a title. Check this out. Check out what the Guardian is running with. U.S. looks isolated after opposing UN resolution on Gaza truce. Only 12 countries joined Washington and Israel as Jordan's motion was passed at the General Assembly. Quite an incredible title from The Guardian. The U.S. is isolated. Unbelievable stuff. Let me read you what The Guardian is saying in this article. 1 hour after Israel had extended its offensive in Gaza, Jordan's motion was passed in New York by 120 votes to 14, with 45 countries abstaining. The outcome was remarkable for showing the limited direct support for the world's greatest superpower, with even France, Spain, and the UK refusing to join the US in voting against the motion. The Guardian is saying that this vote showed the The limited direct support for the world's greatest superpower. Even the UK, Spain, and France voted against the motion. In the days leading to the vote, Jordan had adopted its initial resolution in an effort to secure maximum support by dropping its call for a ceasefire in favor of a sustained humanitarian truce. And it had added that the release of captives must be unconditional. So in the video I did yesterday, actually even in the title of my video yesterday, I actually have the word ceasefire. So that's a mistake on my part, and a pretty significant mistake. I'm not going to go back and change the title or anything, but using the word ceasefire is wrong. And the resolution, from what I've read, and actually I watched Alexander's video yesterday, and he explains this really well in his video update as well. But using the word ceasefire is not correct. The resolution, Jordan and the Arab states that put together this resolution, they purposefully avoided the use of the word ceasefire. I think they actually had it in there in the first draft of the resolution, and then they purposely took it out, and they replaced it with the word truce. And they actually used an immediate, durable truce. That was the wording that they used for this resolution. And they did that because they wanted to create a resolution that was not politicized, that didn't look like it was putting blame on either side, because they wanted this resolution to focus on a humanitarian on the humanitarian aspect of this war, of getting a stop in hostilities, getting an immediate truce, a durable immediate truce, so that humanitarian aid can be delivered to the residents of Gaza. So they purposefully removed the word ceasefire and used the word truce, a durable immediate truce. And by avoiding the word ceasefire, they got more countries on board to support this resolution. So that's actually an important point, which I overlooked. So just that one correction, and the Guardian points this out as well. Let's see. The Guardian also says that that Canada, with U.S. backing, said these adjustments did not go far enough. The adjustments of using the word truce, and also adding in there that adding in the resolution that the release of captives must be unconditional. Canada said this did not go far enough, since Jordan's motion did not name Hamas, but instead simply condemned all attacks of violence against Palestinian and Israeli citizens, including all acts of terror and indiscriminate attacks. It also did not describe the hostages held by Hamas as such, but instead said they were being illegally held as captives. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, said that by refusing to name Hamas, the motion empowered the militant organization that runs Gaza. So one thing that I did report correctly on in my video yesterday with regards to the UN resolution is that that the countries that voted no or abstained, they voted no or abstained because of the fact that Hamas wasn't singled out in this resolution. And so that was the reasoning on record. That's the reasoning that they have given for voting no or abstaining. And this was done, once again, leaving out the condemnation of Hamas, particularly singling out Hamas, was done on purpose, because the resolution did not want, because Jordan and the Arab states did not want the resolution to be politicized. That's why they avoided using words like ceasefire. That's why they avoided singling out Hamas, and that was basically why they used this wording, this terminology in the resolution. Anyway, that's the article from The Guardian. It's just really interesting that you have The Guardian actually coming out and admitting that the U.S. is indeed isolated. And we called this on the Duran. We said about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, Alexander was actually looking at the process that Russia and China were going to implement with regards to the United Nations to try and bring a resolution to the General Assembly that would eventually, over time, isolate the United States and condemn the U.S.'s is escalation in the region, and that's where we're moving towards. We had the resolutions in the Security Council, first by Russia, then by Brazil, then the U.S. Put forward a resolution, and then I believe Jordan put forward a resolution in the Security Council, and eventually we got to the first vote in the General Assembly, and we'll have more resolutions in the General Assembly, and the goal is to take the 14 that voted against and the 45 that abstained. The goal is to start peeling those away from the U.S. Israel side and to start isolating the U.S. step by step. It's going to take time, but eventually you're going to get to a point where the U.S. is absolutely isolated in the United Nations. And then you have the support, the overwhelming support of the international community. Keep in mind, this is all non-binding, but eventually you'll have the pulse of the world community saying, "Look, U.S., you're on your own with this war, and what we need some sort of an international summit, some sort of an event where the UN, along with, say, BRICS, they sit down with Israel and the Palestinians, and we get back to a two-state solution, a peaceful solution to this conflict, an off-ramp to this war." That's eventually where they're moving towards, but at the same time that this process is unfolding at the UN, and we're getting towards some sort of a conference for a solution in the Middle East, you have a buildup. You have a buildup in the region towards an all-out, wider war. That's what's happening in parallel. So, on the one side, they're working the system. They're working the UN system, BRICS, and the Arab League, and much of the international community. They're working towards isolating the U.S. and getting to a point where all parties can sit down and find a peaceful resolution to this war, a durable, lasting, peaceful resolution to this war. Something that the U.S. could never do over the many decades. The U.S. was never able to bring peace to the Middle East. And this is where we're moving towards, but it's going to take time. And as that one side is unfolding, as the peace, what did Orban say? The peace strategy. I like the words that he used. The peace strategy is unfolding. He used those words for Ukraine, but I'll use them in this instance. As the peace strategy is moving along, on the other side you have the war strategy, which is also moving along, and you have the buildup in the Mediterranean from the United States. The Ford aircraft carrier group is in the Mediterranean. The Eisenhower moved in there yesterday. You have two more aircraft carrier groups which are going somewhere. I don't know where, but they're going somewhere. And you just generally have a massive U.S. military buildup in the region. Most likely, this is directed at Iran, Syria. That's what this is looking like. It's looking like the U.S. is preparing for some sort of a very big conflict or a big strike against Iran and Syria, perhaps Hezbollah in the region as well. Who knows? But there is an alternative view on the aircraft carrier movement, and maybe this is a type of silver lining, I guess you could say, to the U.S. military buildup, or maybe the U.S. military buildup isn't as alarming as we may think it is. And this is just an alternative view of things, and it's coming from Armchair Warlord, and he posted this on his Twitter account. "I suspect the Eisenhower CSG is going to relieve the Ford CSG, not reinforce the grouping. The Ford has been deployed for almost 6 months now, and needs to return home for refit. I believe her deployment to Europe was actually extended over the Israel crisis. So, I mean, if you can spin this thing in a positive way, I guess that's a positive way to analyze the situation. Perhaps we're not going to get two aircraft carrier groups and then possibly four aircraft carrier groups in the region, which would be unprecedented to have um, that much military muscle in one condensed small area. That would be a first, I think, to have that much that many carriers in the Mediterranean at one time. Perhaps what we're looking at is the Eisenhower relieving the fort, which would mean that you just have one aircraft carrier group in the Mediterranean, and perhaps the Lincoln and the Roosevelt, they're being sent somewhere else, maybe in the Pacific, maybe to uh, to keep China occupied in Taiwan. I don't know. I have no idea. We'll find out where those aircraft carriers groups are going. But that's just an alternative view of things from Armchair Warlord. And I think that's an interesting and valid analysis of the military buildup in the Mediterranean. We had Netanyahu. Netanyahu gave a statement yesterday, and he said that the conflict in Gaza, the war, is going to be a long war. It's going to take time, and and then he and then he got biblical, and this is where he lost me. Like, he really, really lost me. This statement was in Hebrew, so it wasn't in English. But I'm I'm starting to wonder, with these speeches and statements that Netanyahu makes, and we see them on Twitter and on Telegram. I wonder who he's trying to address here. Is he addressing the people of Israel, or is he addressing the evangelical base in the evangelical bloc in the United States? Because in the statement that he made yesterday, where he said there's going to be a very long, difficult war, Netanyahu said that the Palestinians are like Amalek from, like, the Old Testament, Amalek, and citing the Bible to justify their destruction. The Bible called to utterly destroy all that Amalek have and spare them not, but slay both man and woman and infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. I think that's a passage from the Old Testament. And there are many passages in the Old Testament which refer to the, I think they're called the Amalecians, I believe is what they're called, Amalek, the people of Amalek. And in the Bible, they're referred to as the enemies of Israel. And they're in many different books of the Old Testament. But it, this is not the path that you want to go down, Netanyahu. And I don't think this has traction in Israel, to be quite honest. But I think this does have traction to a certain core group in the United States, that the Mike Pence evangelicals. I think they really eat this stuff up. When Netanyahu says that, Israel's going to take on the Amalek, stuff like this from the Old Testament, that people like Mike Pence and the people that supported Mike Pence, whatever the 1 or 2% that were actually going to vote for Mike Pence, they love this stuff. And the neocons, they love statements like this from Netanyahu as well. By the way, Mike Pence has dropped out of the run for president for the Republicans. He has dropped out. He's run out of money. He's done. Mike Pence is finito. So anyway, that's quite a bizarre statement from Netanyahu. I don't really like these types of statements where you try to bring in religion you try to make this into a religious crusade. I didn't like Erdogan the other day. I didn't like what Erdogan said in his big speech. I don't know, where was that? Was that in Ankara or Istanbul? I don't know, but it was a massive, massive protest. Hundreds of thousands of people in Turkey showed up, and Erdogan addressed the crowds, and it was a pro-Palestinian gathering, if you can even call it that, because we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people to voice their support for the Palestinians. And they were actually even chanting for Turkey to get involved in the conflict. But Erdogan came out, and um, he also called this a type of civilizational war. He said that the West is turning this into a conflict between the cross and the crescent. We can't have that type of rhetoric. So I don't approve what Netanyahu is saying here. I definitely don't approve what Netanyahu is saying here, and I don't approve what Erdogan is trying to do either. They're trying to make this into some sort of a religious war, and that's not a path that we want to go down. That's for sure. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Starlink versus Israel. So Elon Musk, he announced the other day, given the fact that we have a media, internet communication blackout in Gaza, Elon Musk said that he is going to provide Starlink access to various aid organizations in Gaza. So they'll be able to get onto the internet and have some sort of communication in Gaza, where now they do not have internet access in Gaza. And Elon Musk was very clear. He said that he is going to provide Starlink access to aid organizations, not combatants, not military, not Hamas. He said he's going to provide internet access to aid organizations. Fair enough. Personally, I'm not a fan of Starlink being used in military scenarios. I wasn't a fan of how Elon Musk provided Starlink to the conflict in Ukraine. The, the Russians eventually figured it out, and Starlink became useless in Ukraine. But the Starlink system is obviously can be or is being hijacked by the Defense Department, by the Pentagon, and it's being used as a weapon of war. But in this instance, I agree with Elon, because he wants to use Starlink for good. He wants to use Starlink so that the aid organizations can have some sort of internet access, so they can communicate, and so that they can let the world know what's going on. And well, that really, really pissed off Israel, and Israel's communication minister. He vowed that, and I quote, Israel will use all means at its disposal to fight SpaceX CEO Elon Musk and his plans to provide Starlink access to aid organizations in Gaza. Hamas will use it for terrorist activities. That is what Israel claimed. This is what they posted on Twitter, on X, adding that there is no doubt about it. We know it, and Musk knows it. So Israel is claiming that Starlink will be used by terrorist organizations and Hamas, and they're going to fight Starlink, Elon Musk, and SpaceX. Elon Musk, he tweeted in response to this statement from the Israeli communications minister. Elon Musk, he tweeted, and I quote, "We are not so naive. Per my post, no Starlink terminal has attempted to connect from Gaza. If one does, we will take extraordinary measures to confirm that it is used only for purely humanitarian reasons. Moreover, we will do a security check with both the US and Israeli governments before turning on even a single terminal." So Elon Musk is basically guaranteeing that they're going to make sure that the Starlink access is only used by aid organizations in Gaza. So I don't see what the problem is. If Elon Musk guarantees it, and if he's going to consult with the United States, with the Pentagon, with Israeli officials every time Starlink is accessed, why not? Why should Israel fight the Starlink access to the aid organizations? The reason they want to fight it is because there is a fear in Israel and the United States that by opening up access even to aid organizations, they're going to lose the control, the monopoly of the media narrative that they currently have. Even opening up internet access just a little bit risks the aid organizations reporting on the situation in Gaza, and that means that that the United States and Israel, they lose control of the media narrative, full control, monopoly control of the media narrative, and they don't want that. The fact that Elon Musk tweeted this the other day probably also angered Israel. He tweeted this meme, which has a map of Iran, and it says, "Iran wants war. Look how close they put their country to our military bases." And Elon Musk says, "Oh, the irony, Irani, Irany." That's what Elon Musk tweeted out. I'm sure that angered Israel and quite a lot of people in the Pentagon. And this meme is actually taken from a meme with Russia, which came out many years ago, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more, maybe during the time of the Maidan coup. But the meme was Russia. It had a map of Russia, and then it had all of the NATO bases surrounding Russia, and the meme was the same. It said, "Look how close they put their country to our military bases," but it was a map of Russia with all of the NATO bases. You know, Russia is moving closer to NATO. Russia's moving closer to NATO. Meanwhile, you have all of the NATO military bases surrounding Russia. So I'm sure that post, which got retweeted like millions and millions of times, I'm sure that post caught the attention of the Pentagon. Anyway, let's talk about Ukraine. Let's talk about Ukraine and how desperate the Zelensky regime is becoming for some sort of media attention, any kind of attention. Zelensky is looking for attention because no one is talking about Project Ukraine anymore. Doesn't even exist in the collective West media. Maybe you'll see a story come out every now and then, and that story is usually something along the lines of Russia is losing 20,000 tanks in Avdiivka, says the UK or says the Ukraine Ministry of Defense. And that's pretty much the story that you'll see pop up every now and then on the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian, BBC, and they cite the Institute for the Study of War. They cite what's it called, Ukrainsky Pravda or the Kiev Independent, and that's it. That's pretty much where the reporting is. It's focused on Avdiivka, and it just pretty much says that Russia is losing 500,000 tanks, and Avdiivka is turning out to be a catastrophe for Russia. And then the article is pretty standard, how badly Russia's losing, and that's it. But that's all. That's the only real reporting you're getting at the moment about Ukraine. There is one Reuters report, one Reuters news topic, which isn't getting any attention at all, and I'll talk about that in a bit, about Zelensky and Ukraine. But in his desperation for media attention, Zelensky did what he always does, and he launched a massive drone attack towards Crimea. Something like 36 drones were launched at one time into Crimea. Zelensky was hoping that he could hit something, and when he hit something, it would make a big boom, flashy images and video, and then Zelensky could go to Ursula and to Biden and say, look at me. Look at me now, give me money. Give me money. But it didn't work out for Zelensky because, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, this is according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, all attacks by the Kiev regime were prevented. They were all intercepted en route to Crimea. That is what the Russia MOD said in a statement yesterday. And the one thing that the collective West media, that Reuters did report on outside of Avdiivka about Ukraine and Zelensky, is that there's a peace conference taking place. Did you guys know that there is a Ukraine peace conference that is taking place? I had no idea. I had no idea. But Reuters is reporting. This is really gone under the radar. But Reuters is reporting that that Ukraine is involved in a peace conference. The peace conference is taking place in Malta, and Russia's not involved, which is like a pre-clown world, I guess. So there's this peace conference that's taking place in Malta, and Russia's not a party to this peace conference. Actually, it's even a negotiation, is what Reuters is going with. Ukraine is negotiating Zelensky's peace formula in Malta. Russia is absent. National security advisors from about 65 countries gathered in Malta for a meeting hosted by Ukraine over the weekend to discuss a peace formula to end the war with Russia, Reuters reports. The meeting is being held in a Maltese hotel banquet room behind closed doors, but officials said they hope it will lead to an agreement to host a global peace summit later this year. The talks will help assess the ability of Ukraine and the West to win continued and broader support, especially in the global south, as the conflict in Israel dominates the headlines, diverting attention away from Kiev. Diverting attention away from Kiev. You know what Zelensky did here? Zelensky understands that where the Zelensky regime understands that everyone's focused on the war in Israel, rightly so. Everyone has just kind of turned their attention to the war in Israel. We are still reporting on the conflict in Ukraine, myself, Alexander, the Duran. But the Zelensky regime, they understand that there's going to be a whole bunch of UN resolutions, a whole bunch of debate and discussions, and eventually, as I said earlier in my video, we may get to a point, hopefully we get to a point where there is a peace conference for the Middle East. And Zelensky is basically trying to get to that peace conference before the UN and China and Russia, before they get to a peace conference for the Middle East and for the war in Israel. So Zelensky's maybe trying to get his peace conference in there first, but without Russia. Always without Russia, right? We're going to negotiate peace, and we're going to have a peace conference, but Russia's not going to be invited. Oh boy, he's looking for attention. He's looking for money. But the one thing he's not looking for is a real peace. That's the one thing that the Zelensky regime is not looking for. They're not serious about a ceasefire. They're not serious about peace, because if they were serious, then they would have to make just one phone call, once again, to China. Call up Xi Jinping and tell him to mediate a peace between Russia. That's all they need to do if they're serious. All this other stuff, meetings in Malta and conferences in Malta to figure out a way to organize a peace conference or win the global south or whatever. These are just all games and tricks for the Zelensky regime to get attention and to try and figure out a way to get more money into his pockets. That's it. That is it. And speaking about money in pockets, Reuters, they put out an article where they talked about the booming profits for the military-industrial complex because of the conflict in Ukraine and the war in Israel. And let me read you what Reuters said in this article. New contracts to supply Ukraine directly or backfill U.S. weapons sent to Ukraine were signed last year, and now revenue is flowing to the big defense contractors Lockheed, General Dynamics, and RTX all reported better than expected results over the past several days, and executives expect both the conflict in Ukraine and Israel's war with Palestinian militant group Hamas to drive up near-term demand. Quote, we've gone from 14,000 artillery rounds per month to 20,000 very quickly. We're working ahead of schedule to accelerate that production capacity up to 85,000, even as high as 100,000 rounds per month. Jason Eichen, General Dynamics' chief financial officer, said on a call with Wall Street analysts on Wednesday. And here's the important part. And I think the Israel situation is only going to put upward pressure on that demand. Got that? So, Project Ukraine, they now have to backfill. They've used up all the weapons. The collective West has used up all the weapons, and now they have to refill everything. Artillery, tanks, vehicles, you name it, helmets, vests, guns, rifles, whatever. They have to refill everything now because it's all been used up in Ukraine. So this is great for the MIC. They're signing all kinds of contracts, big contracts. Profits are soaring. And the key line is, the key quote from the CFO of General Dynamics is, and I think the Israel situation is only going to put upward pressure on that demand. More weapons, more guns, more ammo, more war. Business is booming. Let's do some clown worlds now. So in Lithuania, here's a tweet from Glenn Deason. In Lithuania, it looks like they are losing their minds over the conflict in Ukraine, over Project Ukraine, over Russia. Actually, I think their obsession with Russia is reaching. I don't want to say dangerous levels. Is reaching levels where I think the leaders of Lithuania have to sit down with a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a trained professional, a trained medical professional, and they need help. I think they really, really need help, because here's a tweet from Glenn Deason. In Lithuania, they now have political propaganda on their roadside. We drove past this sign in Vilnius on our way to Minsk. My Belarusian colleagues were surprised to learn that their country is occupied by Russia. The world has lost its mind. And here you can see the sign, Minsk, 187 kilometers, occupied by Kremlin. And then it says Kiev with the flag of Kiev, the flag of Ukraine, 779 kilometers. Oh boy, so you know what Lukashenko should do? Here's what Lukashenko should do. He should put up a sign where it says, I don't know, 157 kilometers? 187 kilometers to Vilnius, and the sign should say 187 kilometers, Vilnius, and it should say occupied by the United States, occupied by NATO. That's what Lukashenko, that's the sign that Lukashenko should put up. And you know, if you put up that sign in Minsk as you're driving, it says Vilnius, occupied by NATO. You know that if he put up that sign, that Lithuania and the EU would flip out. How dare you? How dare you put up a sign like that? The authoritarian government of Lukashenko is putting up a sign saying we're occupied by NATO. You know they would flip out, because they never recognize, well, they can't recognize trolling, and they never recognize their own hypocrisy, their own double standards. But that's what Lukashenko should do. Without a doubt, that's what he should do. Anyway, interesting post from Glenn Deason. And then we have the Twitter post from Terror Alarm. Terror Alarm. Now, this account says non-state affiliated agenda-free media, world's first AI-generated news and views community. Has 102,000 followers. So a pretty big Twitter account. Not huge, but not small. And it's AI generated. So AI generated Twitter news account. Well, okay, this AI generated Twitter news account, Terror Alarm, they put out a poll, and they have Darth Vader fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars. And it says Force of Light with various flags versus Forces of Darkness. Forces of Light versus Forces of Darkness. And underneath the photo, it says, pick your side. And that's the poll. Are you with Forces of Light? And it has the flag of Israel. And then it has Forces of Darkness, and it has a little purple, is that like a purple devil or something? Anyway, those are the emojis there that they're using in this poll. And the results of the poll were 90% of the people decided to choose Forces of Darkness, and 10% chose Forces of Light. Oh boy, it wasn't even close. It looks like everyone is siding with the Forces of Darkness. Boy, that is epic. That is epic. Boy, did this poll really backfired. And they want us to believe this is AI generated. I don't know about that. I think there's some human hands involved in this poll, some human manipulation and propaganda in this poll. And they were thinking that it was going to be 90% choosing to be on the side of light, of the Jedis, of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And instead, everyone said that they prefer Darth Vader and the dark side, the Sith Lord, Emperor Palpatine. Biden reminds me of Emperor Palpatine. Just a much dumber version of Emperor Palpatine. Anyway, the flags are interesting. I think the flags are like super interesting. How are we doing on time? Okay. The flags that this tweet used for the Forces of Light include, okay, Israel, the United States, the European Union, Ukraine, Canada, Taiwan, okay, interesting. Australia, New Zealand. The flags are so small, it's hard to see them sometimes. I believe South Korea, Japan. I think that's Azerbaijan. They used an Azerbaijan flag in the Forces of Light. And then they used the ABCD, LGB, XYZ, ZQB, flag, and then they used the trans flag. I was unaware that those are countries. So I don't understand why those flags are included in with other flags that are countries. I don't understand why the EU flag is there, to be quite honest. The EU is not a country. But anyway, so those are the flags for the Forces of Light. And for the Forces of Darkness, they have the Palestinian flag, Russia, China, Iran. I think that's Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Armenia. Armenia is a force of darkness. Interesting. India, Turkey. I think that's Qatar. Qatar is a force of darkness. I think that's Qatar or UAE. And Ireland. They have the Irish flag as a force of darkness. Interesting. Anyway, I don't know. I don't quite understand the flags that they're using. Some of the flags, not all of them. Anyway, that was an interesting tweet that went viral. And then finally, the Daily Star, they put out an article after hearing about Boris Johnson getting a TV show for GB News. And the title of their article reads, TV show sends in a clown. Boris signs up with GB News, and it has a photo of Boris the clown. All right. That's the news, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, Rockfin, Telegram, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code TheDuran20 and get 20% off all merch. Adios, Prague. Until next time. Take care.